Hello, welcome to Patterns and Podcasts for Knitters. My name is Renee and I'm coming to you from Northern Illinois. It is another beautiful autumn day here. It's going to be in the 60s. My dog Baloo wants to go out in the worst way, but he's going to have to wait. And today I have four very excellent podcasts that are featuring finished objects that are jumpers. If you're across the pond, you would call it a jumper, or sweater or pullover, I think is a universal referral. And these are lovely sweaters, all the pattern information that you may want. And again, it's just enough to give you some information to see if you'd like to go to one of these podcasts and check out the podcaster and see maybe it'll become your new favorite podcast, or maybe it'll just be a sweater or jumper that you want to get more information on and actually see or somebody talk about having finished it. Also, I actually have a finished object today too. And here it is. It's being blocked right now. It's soaking wet and I'm trying to stretch it a little bit in the width. But again, if you've watched in the past, I am working at, I have a trigger finger. It sticks, so I can't knit English style right now because it pops in and out. Too much information probably, but I have to learn to knit continental style and then I can get back to knitting. So in the meantime, I'm crocheting because I've got to do something. And this is the second vest I've crocheted. This is yarn I bought in Sarnia, Canada. We go up to Port Huron, Michigan. My husband actually has a work assignment in that area. And sometimes we go up there for the weekend. And if I can, I run over to this yarn shop, a cute little yarn shop in Sarnia, Canada. And I happened to go there about 6 months ago. It was Yarn Day in Canada. I think that's what they call it. Anyway, so I got this really beautiful Italian yarn. It's called Borgo di Pazzi. Borgo di Pazzi by Millie. And it's a lovely little wool. It wasn't expensive because it was 50% off and it was $12.99 Canadian dollars. So anyway, I didn't really plan to knit this or to crochet this vest with this yarn, but I wanted to use it and I needed to practice, but I'm kind of done with the crochet thing. I really want to get back to knitting. So anyway, so let's get started with today's podcast. It's a podcast overview and hopefully you will learn something from it. Okay, so here are our four superstars for today. We have Handmade by Florence. Florence is a designer. She's just getting started, and she also is an excellent knitter, and I love her podcasts, relatively new podcaster. The next is Emily Kate Made This, and she comes to us from Germany, and she's very cute, also relatively new podcaster. Then we have Emily from High Fiber Knits. Emily has been podcasting for a year, over a year. Excellent knitter and knows a lot about yarn. It's one of the reasons I like to watch her podcasts. And then we have Nikki, and Nikki is the star of Knitting with Cat Hair. And I'll let you wait to hear why she calls her podcast Knitting with Cat Hair. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, so this is Florence Miller, and the name of her podcast, as I said, is Handmade by Florence. She only has two designs on Ravelry. This design that she calls the step-by-step sweater, and then she has a second design that looks like it's a cute little skirt and kind of a crop top, almost like a bra top combo. Very, very cute. She's only posted about 8 videos so far. She comes to us from England, and she started her YouTube channel in July of 2022. So she's a new podcaster, but she seems quite prolific in that she has quite a few videos already, 8 videos already posted. This sweater is her own design. She has I love the yoke, the squared off yoke that you actually could even do in a stripe. That would be very pretty. Um, and she shows you in it doing a stripe or doing a variegated or a tweedy variegated yarn. Um, the description she has for her sweater is that it's a simple raglan sweater with no complicated techniques, and she says it's perfect for your first garment knitting project. And, you know, she's young, and it could be, you know, young people like to follow other young people, and I think she probably appeals to young people who are just getting started knitting. But I'm not young, and she appeals to me too because I love the sweater. The balloon sleeves obviously are so stylish right now. The crop neck, I would definitely knit this. So maybe when I do my continental knitting technique, this would be a good starter for me. So Florence is an excellent instructor. She's very clear. Her camera work is awesome. She starts out with the materials needed and really spends time, you know, obviously if you're an established knitter, you could, or, you know, experienced knitter, you could always skip over any parts of this, but she talks about swatching and basic techniques for swatching, and she also helps with choosing a size, which I think all of us struggle with. It's almost like you figure out too late that you probably could have done, you know, a size smaller, smaller needles, different yarn, all kinds of changes, almost, you know, when you're like 3/4 of the way done with the sweater. So on, then she gets you started knitting the yoke. She stops and tries it on to show you what you need to look for when you're ready to divide the body into the two sleeves. Again, it's very thorough, very step by step, but not boring at all because she keeps moving it along and she's always changing her visuals to something relevant so you can learn as you go. And in the tutorial, she does the striped version, which is great because she's going to show you how to, you know, change your colors and not jog your stripes and all that good stuff. So of course Florence finishes off by showing you how to weave in the ends, and she really is very good at weaving in the ends. I have to say I love the way that she tucks the yarn into the stitches around the collar. It's very interesting. And she also has 3 appendixes. So after you complete your sweater, you can watch a little bit more information on stripes, a little more information on short row shaping, and also I think you have the option of doing the fold over collar, the double neckline, or you can just do the single, and I think she gives you that option, and in the appendix you can figure out how to do it. So here's the pattern information. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. So I mean, this is really awesome because you can download the free pattern, go buy your yarn or look at your stash and pick out your yarn and then fire up this video and just have, it's kind of like a little knit along with Florence. I think it'd be great fun to do it. She also has an associated video demonstrating all the tricky steps in the knitting process, and I think on Ravelry she's talking about that, actually referring to the YouTube video. So the step-by-step sweater is a simple raglan sweater with no complicated techniques, perfect as your first garment knitting project. It has a relaxed fit, depending, I'm sure, on how you size it, and 2 options for the neckline, folded or flat. This sweater also has an associated video, blah, 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 so we already covered that. So yeah, so you can go onto Ravelry and download the pattern, do it on your own, and it's really a sweet, sweet sweater, really pretty. Do it on your own or, again, knit along with Florence. Okay, so here's how you find this episode. Again, it's Handmade by Florence. Knit Your First Sweater, free pattern and detailed tutorial. She posted this in September of 2022. So it is a relatively, it must be a new pattern, step-by-step pattern. Again, she's only been on YouTube since July of 2022, so she's a new podcaster. She already has over 72,000 views, and I find that many times knitters, designers who are active on Instagram tend to take off pretty quickly in YouTube because they already have a following, I assume, but I'm assuming. And so her Instagram name sign on is Handmade by Florence, so she's easy to find, and then she also has a project page on Ravelry. So again, be so much fun. Knit your first sweater or eighth sweater, whatever it is. And one last word on Florence is I did notice in her comments, the very first comment is, as a new knitter who's looking to make her own sweaters, I cannot thank you enough for making this video. On top of making the pattern free. And she mentions that full tutorials on knitting garments for beginners are very hard to come by. This is so appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's nice. She did get some immediate feedback. It looked like about a month ago, right after she posted. So that's good. It's all good. Okay, next up, this is Emily. And Emily is the host of High Fiber Knits. She is an exceptional knitter, and I love the fact that she really knows her yarn. She does yarn reviews, she compares yarn, she compares the cost of different yarns. You learn a lot from Emily. Emily comes to us from Canada. She started podcasting in July of 2021, so a little over a year at this recording. And in this podcast, she actually has two finished objects. The one we're focusing on is the louver sweater by Petite Knits. It's very classic looking, as you can see, and I love the color that she chose. It's so flattering on her, but I'm going to guess that color would be flattering on just about anybody. So here's the design that Emily knitted. It is as we said, it's the louver sweater by Petite Knits. And I went to the Petite Knits website because I wanted to get the name of the designer. She is pictured here with her baby, and she also does a lot of baby knits, and maybe that's where the name Petite Knits comes from, I don't know. But her name is Mette Vendelbo Ockels. Oh my goodness, I probably really butchered that, but Mette is actually the designer, the person behind the Petite Knits brand. And, she explains on her website that she's built up her design universe behind a brand name, Petite Knit. But again, it is just her. So she is Petite Knit. And of course, she talks about, where she gets her inspiration from and all of that good stuff, which is always fun to hear about. This particular design, the louver sweater, it's a top-down. It has raglan increases to create the shoulders and the yoke, and it has short rows behind that big, thick, big high neck. It really is very pretty. It's a classic looking sweater. One of the few lately I've seen that isn't totally cropped, and I don't know that it would look good cropped. I think again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I do like it in the tweedy ivory yarn. That's really pretty. And I will tell you that Emily loved the yarn she used, and she loved the pattern, and she did talk in this episode about getting started with her next louver sweater. So she's really sold on it. She just absolutely loves it, and who wouldn't? So as I said earlier, Emily is really very expert in yarn. Maybe that's why the name of it's High Fiber Knits. I don't know. But she loves heathered yarn. She talks about heathered yarns, and she really loves this yarn she used for the sweater, which is Knit Picks Palette. Rather than hold it with a mohair, according to Emily, palette kind of gives you the same result as holding your, 2 or 3 yarns together. I don't know. I've never used the yarn. The colorway that Emily chose is called Iris Heather. I went to the website to look at this yarn. There are over 200 customer reviews on the Knit Picks website. And the yarn was not expensive. And this is where Emily goes into quite a comparison on what this sweater may have cost her using different yarns. Which is good. I guess we should always think about that. There's more involved here than just color. This yarn was $4.49 a roll for a 50-gram ball. I shouldn't say a roll. It was $4.49 for a 50-gram ball. And when I was on the website, a 15% off coupon kept popping up, so that I would definitely use that. She said she did get exact gauge knitting with this yarn. And as I said, she's planning a second sweater. And she's worn the sweater a couple of times, and she said it's soft and the high collar is not scratchy. It looks like she did a rolled collar. Yeah, she's got it rolled down or double. There are a couple of collar options with this pattern, and I'm certain on this episode Emily goes into detail about that as well. So as I said, Emily loved the pattern. It knitted up beautifully. She only made one adjustment, and that was to give herself a little bit more positive ease under the arms. It's more comfortable. I think many of us would agree with her on that. But other than that, it's pretty much knit, to size. And it looks like she said that the collar wasn't scratchy. The yarn is beautiful. She's a big fan of the yarn, as I said. But I don't know that she did the collar as high. Maybe she did. Maybe it was folded over in some of the pics. But anyway, she does go into all the options that Petite Knits offers on this pattern. Here's the pattern information. Again, it's the Louver sweater by Petite Knit. It is available on Ravelry. It is worked from the top down, raglan increases on the yoke, short rows are worked after the neck rib edge to shape the neckline. So it's pretty straightforward, and the price of the pattern is around $6.22 USD. And again, it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern, and I think Emily talks a lot about the pattern, so it's a very good episode to watch if you're at all interested in this. And the pattern was published in March of 2021, so it hasn't been around that long. Here is the episode information. Again, it's High Fiber Knits is the name of the podcast. Emily has almost 6,000 subscribers, which is very good. She's also active on Instagram. Again, you would just search on these words, knitting podcast, free hair scarf pattern, progress on louver sweater, and camisole number 7, new whip. So that episode, which was posted in late August, is when the louver sweater was a work in progress. And then the Finished Object podcast is Cami number 7 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and Louver Sweater by Petite Knits, knitting podcast number 21. So easy to find. And again, that's Emily, and she is the host of High Fiber Knits. And just one last thought on the this podcast in particular. One of the comments I noticed on this episode was from a woman who was kind of supporting Emily for being diplomatic about some kind of controversy over designers who do not offer the size range going from extra small up to XLs and things like that. I don't know anything about this, but evidently there's quite a bit of controversy about it, and Emily was faced with that, but she handled it quite well. She's quite the pro and does a very good job with her podcast. Okay, next up is Emily, and Emily is the host of Emily Kate Made This, and that is a podcast on YouTube that comes to us from Germany. Emily's English is beautiful, lovely, um, very pleasant to listen to, and she's young, as you can see. And in this episode, she's over the moon because she finished her Felix pullover. Of course, they do call it Felix pullover by Amy Christophers. Or is it Christophers? I'm going to say Christophers. And she used a very rustic yarn, beautiful, beautiful color for her. And she was knitting in a Norwegian style. She was doing knit purl yarn overs in Norwegian style, and she said she was doing it horribly wrong. She had to rip out the yoke twice, and then she had to go back to her English style knitting in order to fix it. I think the issue was with the lace, with the eyelets and the short rows. She goes into it in the episode, so you definitely can learn the details about it if you watch this episode. So in the designer's own words, Amy Christophers, this is a very easy and very quick knit with a light Aran weight yarn, worked at a relaxed open gauge. She does recommend Letlopi yarn, that's the Icelandic yarn. She says the Letlopi yarn will bloom and soften when washed, creating an incredibly warm and shockingly lightweight sweater, like a down jacket but better. Emily did have, as I said, a lot of trouble with the short rows, and she had a little problem getting the neckline because it looks quite large, and I don't know if that's what the pattern called for. She did end up having to put elastic in the neckline, but she said that it was really lovely, even though she did have to rip it a couple times. She just loved knitting it. I like the length that she chose. It looks really cute with a skirt. Look cute with anything, but especially cute with that skirt. Actually, Emily did reach out to her viewers for some help on gauges because she was so confused in the first episode. I'm going to give you two episodes, one when this was a whip and the other one when it was a finished object. And she could not get her gauge to work with this yarn. And as it turns out, though, after she blocked it, then the gauge was perfect. So she goes into quite a bit of discussion about that. The yarn she used was the Letlopi number 9427. She did then, after she did the sweater, she knit the Renga beret. It's so cute on her. It's kind of a, I guess it's called a beret, but it's kind of a floppy beret. And that is done in Novita Icelandic wool in the Steinpils color. And she kept referring to it as mushroom. Doesn't look like mushroom, but there could be a mushroom that color, who knows. But isn't that pretty? It looks like it's in the same yarn as the sweater. Of course, you can't tell with cameras. I mean, they sometimes distort things, but it looks really adorable. At first I thought it was with the leftover yarn from her sweater, but no, it is, she actually went out and purchased yarn. The recommended yarn for the Renga beret is what she used to knit the Renga beret, which is always smart. So she did talk quite a bit about blocking the sweater, and it was kind of cute because she said that she knit socks for her husband and he would not wear the socks because they were so scratchy, because she didn't know when she was a new knitter, just in the last couple of years I think she started knitting. She did not know that if you block wool, it softens it. And then when she discovered blocking, wow, it was a whole new world. So she said that this sweater fit her before she blocked it and after. It still does look quite rustic, doesn't it? I think that's intentional. It's supposed to look that rough. But anyway, it's pretty. I think the color, whatever the texture, the color kind of saves the day. So this is the pattern information. I hope you don't hear that. I have a noise canceling mic. If you do, I'll have to re-record this, but somebody is using a leaf blower out there. The leaves have all come down off the trees. They're still beautiful, but we're like about knee deep in leaves in some areas in our yard. So anyway, here's the Felix pullover by Amy Christophers. It's published in Savory Knitting. It was published in 2019. It is available in English. Looks like that's the only language. And you could buy the pattern for about $7 US. And I don't believe that Emily used the recommended yarn, but she does go into quite detail about where she did get her yarn. So here is the episode information. It's Emily Kate Made This. Go to Knitting Podcast episode 7, Felix Pullover. That is when it's a whip. And the Knitting Podcast episode 25, that is when the sweater is a finished object and she's already knitted her little hat. So you can find Emily also on Ravelry and Instagram. And she does seem pretty well connected in the knitting world. I think she's personal friends with some other podcasters, and that's all good. So it's another young knitter who I hope is inspiring more knitters, young and old. Okay, next up is another knitter who comes from Canada. This is Nikki, and she is the host of Knitting with Cat Hair, and she has to have a disclaimer to explain to all of us that she doesn't actually knit with cat hair, but I guess she said that they have more cats than humans in their household, which is like 5 cats I think she has, and a couple of kids and a husband. And she's always finding cat hair in her knitting. But if it's part of the family, it's part of the family, so not a big deal. But she's been knitting on and off since the age of 8. And in 2017, she said she got really serious about her knitting, and she is an amazing knitter. And in this podcast, she is doing her first test knit. And she is test knitting the Wild Posy Jumper by Melody Hoffman. And it's so pretty. It comes in, I think, 2 different styles. I'm not sure on that. It might be just one pattern, but it's very pretty on her, and I like the color that she chose. I know what I'm remembering now. It was all about the yarn in this podcast. Um, it's the Wild Posy Jumper in Newtoden, and Nikki absolutely loves this yarn. Newtoden is an unspun yarn, and she purchased this unspun yarn. It comes in plates. It's very different from yarns that are finished. It's almost like an unfinished yarn. They call it a pre-yarn, I guess. I'm not an expert, but I've learned a little bit. And she purchased this yarn from Onar och Eyre. It's a small family business located in Sweden. The colors vary depending on the blend, and the colorways are unique, and it's done in small batches. They don't always have this yarn available, so you have to subscribe to their newsletter, and they send out a notice to let you know when the yarn is available, and then you have to make sure to buy enough for your project. And this is what happened in Nikki's project. She knit this sweater holding 3 strands together. The name of the color is Korsbeneja, Korsbeneja. And she chose to do the Newtoden because it's evidently very lightweight but still very warm. So you can put this sweater on and it may feel, like a summer knit, but it actually gives you the same warmth as a heavy sweater. But she did have an issue with the quantity of yarn. She was worried she would run out. She hadn't run out, but she was worried she would run out. And so she reached out to another podcaster, and it was Fernanda from Little Monkeys and Me. And Fernanda actually had a ball of this yarn. I don't know if they actually do dye lots, but it must have been at the same time that Nikki purchased it, and it matched beautifully. I don't know that Nikki actually had to use it, but she was ready if she needed it. And it was a test knit, so of course she wanted to finish it and finish it on time. So the only modification she made was that she knitted the body longer. She said about an extra 2 inches. And she loved the wrap stitches. You can see them across the cuffs and across the yoke. And when she blocked it, the sweater fit her perfectly before she blocked it and after. She did find a couple of little errors in the pattern. I guess that's the mission of test knitters, is to help the designer correct little errors or little things that aren't clear. But she said that the errors she discovered had already been discovered, and it was a couple of little minor things. So Melody Hoffman did an excellent job on her design. So here's the pattern information. It's the Wild Posy. It does come in two different versions, the Flora and the Luna. As I'm remembering now, Nikki said that the Flora had a lace pattern in it and the Luna did not. Again, Wild Posy by Melody Hoffman. It is published in Mandarine's Ravelry store. Mandarine is the brand name that Melody Hoffman uses. Again, this is lovely, lovely. The languages, it comes in English and French. The pattern is available for about $7.50 US dollars, $7.50 US dollars or 7.50 euros, and it would be very easy to find it on Ravelry. And I'm going to guess that Melody Hoffman probably has her own website as well. Here's how to find Nikki's podcast. I think she does have 5 cats. She's got pictures of them in her logo. So again, it's the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast on YouTube. Go to episode 32. That is where she's saying knitting my first test knit. And that would be when it's a whip, Wild Posy, jumper, and Newton, Knitting with Cat Hair podcast, September 2021. And then episode 33 is finished Wild Posy, and that's where it is a finished object, very easy to find. And as usual, I'll put these titles in the show notes so you can easily find them on YouTube. Nikki is very well connected in the knitting community. She's on Instagram, Ravelry. She has a Ravelry group, Knitting with Cat Hair podcast, and she also offers her emails. So she's lovely and an excellent knitter, and her podcasts are very pleasant. And one last word on this pattern and this designer. Melody Hoffman does have her own podcast on YouTube. It's called Mandarines. She podcasts from France, and I do like watching her podcasts. They're very interesting. It's fun listening to how designers think. So if you go to the Best of Autumn, hand knitted sweaters, foraging, and baking apple cakes, she does talk about the Wild Posy sweater in that podcast. And she has a lot of subscribers, over 27,000. She's had over 1.5 million views. So that might be another podcast that you'd want to kind of get to know. Okay, so that wraps up this episode. Again, we have 4 lovely podcasts to consider, and especially beautiful patterns. I will be doing vests coming up, and definitely cardigans. I believe the cardigan episode so far has been the most watched of my episodes, and I really have not promoted these. Again, they're kind of a guide for you. I try to do them quickly. I'm trying to keep them around a half an hour, 30 minutes, because I think what you can do is just jump around, skip around, and just check out some of these podcasts. I'm going to be covering also brand new podcasters. I probably have 30 podcasts that are just getting started. So anyway, I'll keep putting them together and hopefully you will continue to watch. Okay, so I'll put the podcast names and these episode names in the show notes below. I hope that you will subscribe and I hope you will keep watching and I hope that you will give me comments. Let me know of your favorite podcasts. I'd be happy to go check them out and feature some of their finished objects as well. Um, it's just fun. It's just such a discovery, and I'm very grateful to each of these podcasters who takes the time to make their videos, to show us their knitted objects, to kind of give us an insight or give us a view into what kind of struggles they're having, and of course we really do love to share in their accomplishments. So anyway, that's it for today, and hopefully you will keep knitting all day, every day. Talk to you later. Bye.